So, Greg, you were traveling with Clinton yesterday, too. We even saw him stop at a McDonald's. That's very familiar from his own campaign. How are voters there responding to him? Do you think that the description could be right from the Times, what they called him, that he's a secret weapon for rural voters?
Well, look, it brings more media attention to the campaign. It brings more energy. Voters were bemused. They were happy to see him. It was vintage Bill Clinton, as you mentioned. He went to McDonald's. He joked about eating candy apples at Georgia State Fair. He joshed with some people in the crowds at his stops. They weren't big rallies. These weren't arenas type events. They were small scale events that really brought back memories of that 1992 Bubba's for Bill road trip that Clinton's campaign took way back when, through many of the same small Georgia towns that he visited this week. So in one sense, it was vintage Bill Clinton. Another, though, the campaign really thinks he could be a twofer, someone who not only energizes black voters, but also rural voters, two groups of voters that Harris really needs right now in Georgia.
Yeah, so what do you think, Matthew? What will Democratic nostalgia buy Hillary Clinton by Kamala Harris via Bill Clinton?
Well, I think, I agree with what Greg just said. I think everybody knows this race is on the margins, and it's going to be a few thousand votes. And so the final 21 or 22 days, which is where we are, is primarily about motivating the base of each party's vote. And I think Bill Clinton helps with that. He's going to go to areas that the vice president and Governor Walz will not be able to go to because they have 7 states, various places to go. And so I think in a very close race, and Georgia is going to be one of those states, it's very close. My expectation is all 7 battleground states are going to be within 1 or 2 points of each other. All of them together are going to be within 1 or 2 points of each other. So in a very tight race to be decided by a few thousand votes like it was in 2020, I think Bill Clinton helps with motivation in areas that Governor Walz and Vice President Harris won't be able to go to.
And it's interesting to me, too, Matthew, that they're small groups, right? Because I'm reminded as I'm watching him, what I saw when he first ran for president, he's famous for, which is when Bill Clinton is talking to somebody, there is a connection. He has that political gift that draws people into him. And if we really are talking about something on the margins, to what extent could that matter?
Well, I think nobody knows what actually is going to matter, what will be the ultimate tipping point in any of this. It's probably going to be 72 tipping points that change the nature of a state like Georgia from voting for Donald Trump to voting for Kamala Harris. And I think Bill Clinton is good at explaining. That he's been often called the explainer in chief because he's very good at relating to people in sort of just their terms. But in a state with a few thousand votes, and it's not so much the people at that gathering, even though it was small, as Greg said, it's the sort of the press he gets out of it and the social media he gets out of it, that if you get a few hundred votes or 1,000 votes in total that change or adjust or are motivated, it could be the difference between winning or losing Georgia.
And Greg, if we're talking about the margins, you reported on the reconciliation of sorts, I guess, that we saw between Donald Trump and Governor Brian Kemp after, of course, Trump called Kemp a bad guy, disloyal guy, an average governor. I wonder if that impacts Republican voters and maybe even turnout there. Tell me the margins you're looking at and what might influence them.
Yeah, it could. It could give permission for some of those Republican voters who are on the fence about voting for Donald Trump that ability to vote for him. I mean, I talked to Republicans about what keeps them up at night about this election cycle, and they're worried about those split ticket voters, those same voters that used to be reliably Republican but voted for Joe Biden, that voted for Senator John Ossoff and Senator Raphael Warnock in 21 and voted again for Senator Warnock in 2022 over a Trump-backed candidate. It's those split ticket voters that keep them awake at night. There's about, the Warnock campaign estimates about 9% of Republicans voted for them. So that's a sizable number. We know that 200,000 or so split their tickets in 2022 in Georgia. So we're talking a significant number of voters in a race that could be decided, as we've been saying, on the margins. So that Kemp sort of reconciliation, we'll see how long that lasts. But for now, it's holding. And that could have a real big impact in November here.